Hello and welcome to the edition from The Spectator. I'm William Moore, The Spectator's features editor. And the latest issue of the magazine has just gone to print. To talk about what's in it, I'm delighted to be joined by Tim Shipman, our political editor, Lara Brown, our commissioning editor, and the Daily Mail columnist, Sarah Vine. Our cover this week is AI Apocalypse Now. Is Starmer ready for what's coming? Asks Tim Shipman. So Tim, is he?
No. Next. Look, if you ask people what the government has actually done well, it's a vanishingly small list, but lots of people say, actually, they've done all right on AI. They didn't just junk everything the Tories did, like they did in a whole range of other areas. They have built on what Rishi Sunak put in place. We've got this AI safety body, which they put money into. There was an action plan a year ago, and as of last week, 3/4 of it has already been enacted, which is a remarkable pace compared with almost everything else that's going on in Whitehall. But increasingly, people have been getting in touch saying, this is a crunch, make or break moment for Britain, and we are about to drift into irrelevance in terms of this. Britain's in a slightly strange position. It's the third sort of AI power in the world, but it is so vanishingly far behind the first two, America and China, that we're not really in the game in terms of coming up with these AI models, funding the companies, having the companies that do this work. The Americans are pouring trillions of dollars into this, and we are putting a few tens of billions into AI growth zones. We have an AI security body, which Sunak helped set up, and that's doing good work by all accounts. But the increasing concern is that we're going to miss the boat even in exploiting AI if we're not careful. And what the experts say is that for it all to work, you need more capital than we've got. The stock market's not functioning terribly well. We're not encouraging investment into Britain in the way that you would need to do. You need the talent, we've got that, but it all flees to go and work for American tech companies. Anything that's good in Britain gets bought up quite quickly and taken over by other people. And the biggest problem is that you need a lot of computing power and a lot of energy supply in order to do it. And guess what? That's a massive stumbling block, and it's a huge political problem for the government because the bloke effectively preventing us from getting the energy supplies we need or prioritising AI in terms of the connectors to the grid is Mr. Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, our old friend. And I've spoken to a lot of people in and around government who say that he sits in meetings and says, nope, can't do it. Got my net zero targets to hit and we can't do it if I'm going to hit those targets. And Starmer has not yet overruled him. Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff, a wounded man at the moment because of the Mandelson affair, he's a big fan of it all. And they're unable to kind of burst through this and make it work. Coupled with the fact that there's growing evidence as well, this is going to be a huge political problem going forwards. So it's not just that AI itself creates sort of political divisions. If you start junking net zero, that will upset left-wing MPs who might oust Keir Starmer. It will also upset a load of left-leaning voters who might then migrate to the Green Party. But you've got this huge structural issue that there's going to be a massacre of middle-class white-collar jobs. By some estimates, half of all entry-level white-collar jobs are going to go. There's some people in the Labour Party think, great, we're going to get back to the day when the reliable jobs are the plumbers and the electricians, the sort of sanctification of the worker who uses their hands. People like Maurice Glassman from the Blue Labour movement are very enthused about all that. The problem is any government that's sitting there when a whole bunch of people who've spent a large sum of money going to university and expecting to have some benefits from it realise that there's nothing to go and do, there's going to be a huge backlash. And James Kanagasorian, very bright pollster, the guy who invented the concept of the red wall in British politics, he's now come up with another one, which he calls collar flip. And he's basically saying blue collar back, white collar on its way out. And this is going to be a big problem for the government going forward. And frankly, if it doesn't get a grip on all this, it's going to be a problem. Now, I suspect a lot of this would be afflicting any government, but I think everybody that I've spoken to says that the energy thing is the basic fundamental requirement. And without that, we ain't going anywhere. And that is a particular problem for Labour.
Sarah, are you an AI optimist or a pessimist, do you think? I mean, do you think that, do you worry about this kind of middle-class jobs apocalypse that Tim's hinted at just then?
I am the leader of the analogue resistance.
For what reason?
AI doesn't just use a lot of energy, it uses a lot of water. It's very, people are using, they're using up huge amounts of resources in order to, make a video of a dancing cat. The problem with humans is that, this kind of intelligence is all very well and good, but we just use it for stupid stuff. The vast majority of AI currently, as far as I can tell, is just nonsense, literally nonsense.
Well,
I'm sure it will have good applications, but like everything to do with the internet and technical innovation, it's completely unregulated. Nobody's actually sat down and thought, is there some sort of framework that we ought to have in place for this thing, just so that we can make sure that, that it doesn't, use up all of our water or decide to kill us all in our sleep or whatever the hell. And also the social change. I mean, I'm not that interested in the technical stuff, but the social change that it's going to bring about is going to be absolutely massive because, as you say, it is going to start to undermine these white-collar jobs. And there's no plan. What are these people going to do? And besides, if we're all going to become plumbers and electricians, that's great, but who's going to employ those plumbers and electricians if all the middle classes who are in white-collar jobs are basically now unemployed? So the entire sort of employment structure, and also these people pay a lot of tax. If they're not making money, they're not going to be paying tax. So how are you going to fund all of this stuff? So that, for
10% of people pay 65% of the income tax, and these are the kind of jobs that are going to be lost. These are the kind of jobs that are going to go.
Yeah. So I personally think that's the priority for me, is just having a plan to tackle that problem. What are you going to do? Say to them, are we going to have some kind of communist system where everyone gets £10.50 a day and that's what they live on, and the AI does everything else? Or what are these people going to do? Is it going to be like the Great Depression, where you're going to have people on the streets with their belongings because they simply have no way of earning a living? And that, for me, is the stuff. And
I don't think they've thought about it.
No, and I understand that as a Labour government, they're all huzzah, the honest working man is back. But, we're a service industry. And if you've got no one to buy your services, it's not going to work. I mean, all of our manufacturing, Keir Starmer's just come back from China, where he's been filleting the people there. and all of our manufacturing is over there now. We don't make anything. We make very few things. Make some pottery every now and again. Nice stuff.
Very nice pottery.
Pottery. But it's essentially, we don't have a manufacturing base. And that was a problem that became very apparent during COVID, because we were totally, clearly, catastrophically non-self-sufficient. We rely on almost everybody else. So these are really macro problems. And I agree with you. I think it's important to embrace AI, to make sure that we have a piece of that pie. But at the same time, what is the world going to look like when you take out, as you say, 65% of the tax revenue, because those people can no longer make a living?
Yeah. And you've written before about the in the Mail about the effect of AI on the creative industries as well. And I think though, actually,
it's a thief. It just scrapes everybody's
stuff.
But
actually, I think the biggest backlash against AI comes from the creative world.
I know. The creative
That's also the biggest block here, by all accounts, why it's a less permissive environment for AI than it is in the States, because the copyright issue, and I speak as an author, I know my books have been scraped, and some people have paid me small amounts of money for scraping them, but nothing like...
But you see, the point is, I don't mind if AI wants to scrape something that I've written, but they should pay for it, because it's not free. And the other thing that will happen if nothing is done about the creative industry side of things is that the quality of the stuff that's being created will gradually over time just deteriorate, because there will be less and less happening. Fewer people will be able to make a living from this. There will be no new ideas. The quality will deteriorate, and it will all eventually just become AI eating itself. So, you're talking about losing, our huge artistic patrimony, which, I think culturally we're still quite good at that sort of stuff. That'll all just eventually fade away and die, because there will be no artists, there will be no writers, there will be no novelists, there will be no filmmakers, no one will make fun sitcoms anymore. It'll all just be derivative stuff, and I feel quite strongly about all of that. So I think if I were the Prime Minister, which thankfully I'm not, I would have a proper committee that is, drawn from all areas of expertise, and I would come up with some kind of plan. And I would think about how I might regulate this new... I think one of the great tragedies of the last 30 years, which is sort of essentially when the internet has become prevalent, is that we failed to regulate internet porn. We did nothing about that, which means that now we have, 8-year-olds whose first sexual experience is some poor Lithuanian girl getting railed by 20 Polish men, which is not what you would want at all. And it's transformed the way where our society works. It's a threat to young women. It's very misogynistic. That stuff has all become embedded. There are all sorts of issues to do with the internet and to do with smartphones. And I know yesterday they were debating this in the House of Lords about the potential ban on social media for under 16s, and everybody's it's a freedom of speech issue. But yeah, okay, but is this the world you actually want to live in? Because this is the world you're living in now.
I think the challenge with AI is that Britain is kind of leading the way in terms of the regulation of it, but I think there's a danger. I mean, I hear what you say about most of it's being used for amusing videos of cats at the moment. I saw an interesting graph when I was writing this piece that basically said on the line of sort of, it goes sort of like that in terms of how quickly it develops. And on one side of the line, there's, oh, that's a cute cat video. Right. And on the other, it's, oh my Christ, what's just happened?
Yeah.
And it's not just about creative stuff. It's about the fact that wars are probably going to be fought between two different bits of AI, and or virtually every weapon we've got may be defunct within the next 3 years.
There's an interesting piece by Nick Carter.
If we don't get in the game.
There's an interesting piece by Nick Carter, the former general, who says that in the future, when it comes to AI, wars will be won on essentially which bit of computer programming can fire a nanosecond quicker than the other bit of computer programming. So I suppose there is a risk, arguably, that of Britain just being left behind with this stuff if we're too...
I completely agree, and I think that Tim is totally right that we need to get ahead of it. But what I'm also saying is that at the same time, we need to think about the sort of unintended consequences of this stuff, because they could. I mean, I think it's bigger than the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, but it should be the subject of a massive national debate, and it should be something that the Prime Minister's talking about, as often as he's talking about the cost of living.
Yeah, but it should be something that the Prime Minister knows what he thinks about.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that Keir Starmer knows what he thinks about anything. but on this, he really does need to formulate a plan and a strategy.
Because even in the last 10 days, the warnings about what this might be capable of are astonishing. There have been examples of AI effectively talking, one AI model talking to another and saying, let's devise a language of our own that the humans don't understand. And Elon Musk, even, who's at the forefront of loving this stuff, basically said this was concerning. And the boss of Anthropic has written a 19,000-word essay in which he said, well, it's read all this literature, including a lot of sci-fi, where the machines take over from the humans, and it could well have learnt from that. It could have learnt in its morality lessons that all humans should be killed because we've made some animals extinct.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the thing is,
you just don't know where this is going to end.
If you're a very logical machine and you ask yourself what is the main problem with planet Earth and its environment, the answer is the human.
Yeah.
And especially there's a lot of academics and there's a lot of people who have actually left-wing economists who do push that idea that the problem is humans. I mean, if machines learning from them, then
exactly.
Or as Tim says, maybe watching the Terminator films and going,
that looks like a really good idea.
There's an idea.
So there is an option for us all to say, as a planet, no.
But the genie's out of the bottle.
Well,
Yes.
the
Chinese
Chinese
to put it back in.
Yes, exactly. China's
we
not
can
going to say
take it
no.
away from ourselves, but the Chinese are not going to say, actually, I don't think we need this.
Yeah. I mean, Lara, what do you think? There's the line towards the end of Tim's piece, quoting a former researcher at Google, DeepMind, who says that the government should be treating AI as like it's a national emergency. I mean, what do you think that's hyperbolic, or?
I mean, I'm personally very nervous of AI. I think the difficulty is I'm not sure we get to decide how it turns out. We can't regulate it because people making it don't know how it works, and they don't know why it spits out certain stuff. It's sort of a complete black box.
Well, yes, they still don't know why the hallucinations happen, because we read all the time about AI hallucinations, and despite all the progress made, even within the last 6 months or something, in terms of AI progress, no one still seems to have come up with a convincing answer as to why they do hallucinate.
It's not just hallucinations. I mean, obviously, the fact AI makes things up makes it, I think, a very, very bad professional tool.
And does all the stuff that humans do.
It also goes completely rogue. I mean, every now and again, ChatGPT just tells someone to kill themselves. And they obviously keep trying to train that out of it. People are having relationships with AI. They're experiencing psychosis as a consequence of being an AI. There's an interesting Anthropic study done about a year ago now where they created sort of a fake model and they gave it access to various emails and stuff, which is how the personal assistant AIs are going to look going forward. And they sent a fake email talking about cancelling the bot or wiping it or something. And the Claude AI bot in the study then emails the CEO, reveals the details of an affair he was having with his secretary. This is all within a training model, I should clarify. And then says, if you don't cancel the 5 p.m. wipe, I will publish this on the internet. So we've somehow, without understanding what we're doing, created AI which is self-sustaining, coming up with a religion, trying to solve its own problems, has read loads of sci-fi. I think it's very, very scary. I don't like that the government are doing nothing on it, but the government could get that together tomorrow, and China's still in the AI race, and America's still in the AI race, and I don't really see how you fix that.
And you wrote this very good piece last year for The Spectator about people who fall in love with chatbots. And I remember a very interesting
So I
part.
read that, it was really good.
It's very, very good. And there was a very interesting part of it about essentially the sycophancy problem, that all the models are incentivized to just tell you whatever it is you want to hear. And so that can go to some pretty dark places pretty quickly.
I mean, there are some humans that will do that. You know, yes, exactly.
What a brilliant point, Sarah.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily for the right intentions.
Might we suggest Peter Mandelson was one?
We'll get to him, don't worry.
But I think the thing here is, if you want to scam someone or draw them in or be sort of malicious in some way, you are confined to the amount of effort you as one person can expend, and AI can just do it infinitely, and therefore it can find every single vulnerable person and drag them into a relationship. And it wants you to keep asking questions and keep using up water and keep burning through energy, because that's how these models make their money.
I mean, I'm old, I'll be dead soon, doesn't matter. You're very young, and you know, if I were your age, I'd be very worried about it. I'd be on the streets, because I just think it's a massive thing for your generation.
I think what's odd is people were on the streets about nuclear in a way we just haven't seen for AI. There's a bit of protest, there's a bit of stuff about the creative industries, but we have sort of accepted that AI is just going to wash us all away.
And also, we saw the catastrophe of nuclear. We saw it.
You could see a big explosion.
Yeah, exactly. But we haven't yet quite seen a catastrophe with AI. We haven't seen it really harming something.
I think, as Tim was saying, the path of exponential growth looks completely flat from behind, and then suddenly you're looking up and you're going, what happened? So I think once we see a catastrophe, that's it. Once someone's got some really, really good AI weapons, and we've not caught up with them.
Well, Lara, in this week's magazine, you and John Power, you interviewed one of the tech billionaires most associated with AI and is also obsessed with the end times and catastrophe, Peter Thiel of Palantir. It sounds like he basically just wanted to talk about the Antichrist and not much else. Am I getting the gist of that right?
Is this the AI Antichrist or the actual Antichrist?
Well,
No.
Lara can explain. Or try to, I think.
I will do my best. So in November, myself and two other accredited writers went out to Los Angeles to meet Peter Thiel, who is the billionaire that founded PayPal and was very involved with Facebook in its early years, and now has various sets of foundations and sort of a lot of hands in different tech pies. And he spoke to us about a series of sort of quite profane political insights. He had thoughts on reform and the grooming gangs and real estate prices. But
were they like Tusk? Were they like Elon Musk's thoughts?
He sort of, I'd say he's a right-wing politician. He's friends with J.D. Vance. But at the end of the interview, he asked to go off the record after 2 hours, and then just got completely animated about the Antichrist, and promised that he would do a follow-up with us in the new year. So me and John Power, who I wrote with, were invited to Cambridge, and he was doing 4 2-hour-long lectures in the back of these small Cambridge colleges to talk about the Antichrist. And I think when we went into it, we thought, okay, so Thiel really cares about politics. He has relationships with the Trump administration. He's had a friendship with Elon Musk that sort of waxed and waned. He thinks the Antichrist is this great metaphor for various things, and he's always saying,
Things he doesn't like, basically.
He's thrown out over the years various comments about maybe Greta being the Antichrist, or maybe he's ruled out Bill Gates, but he said he's like the Antichrist.
Antichrist adjacent.
Antichrist adjacent,
It's like a beta Antichrist.
An agent of the Antichrist. But as these lectures went on, it became clear that he has developed a theology in which he really sincerely believes the Antichrist living among us. I think the glean of truth in this is that he thinks because society is sort of so downtrodden and so sort of stagnated, a lot of people feel like we're living in a sort of end times. People talk about a sort of experience in the fall of Roman Empire, but for the West. And therefore, they're much more likely to latch on to a sort of false prophet. Some people would say it's going to be a populist figure who promises the world. He thinks it's going to be a sort of left-wing Luddite. And that's interesting. But he also has a developed and very, very strange to get your head around theological approach to the Antichrist, which is hard to trace the Bible on the basis of there not being much in the Bible about the Antichrist, but is clearly the thing he now most
So
cares about.
he thinks the antichrist is the person who's going to stop the AI technological progress, not a result of it. Is that right?
So this is the...
What?
Yeah.
It's so...
Sorry?
So basically...
Should this man be in charge of all these companies, is the question that I'm now asking myself.
The thing to think, Peter Thiel is a very, very successful, intelligent man. He basically believes that one of the biggest mistakes humanity makes is trying to return to Eden. And he points out that the Bible is very clear that we are never going to, in a post-lapsarian state, get back to Eden, even post-Judgment Day. What he has then inferred from that is that it is our job to use tech to massively further and improve society, and that is sort of what God wants. He's very, very critical of Calvinists. Anyone who thinks anything is predetermined. And therefore he thinks that the acceleration of AI, the acceleration of tech, is really important. His strangest quote from the lecture is he said, "I'm not sure if I'm going to live forever because of life extension technology or because of Judgment Day and the resurrection. I'm hedging my bets."
It sounds so crazy, all of this. It sounds so mad.
But I just to interject on that live forever point, the whole thing about technologies, it means we do now live forever.
In some way, yeah.
In some way, yeah.
Yeah, and also particularly with AI. You've seen all these things that you get on Instagram saying, upload a photograph of your granny and we'll bring her back to life. And then there's this sort of really spooky thing of your granny going high.
Yeah.
And so, this concept of living forever is very much, I think, kind of embedded in this whole AI thing, which is the idea that, at some point you'll just be able to upload your
Definitely, but I think that's the almost satanic thing. Like that,
that's
Peter Thiel.
It's very satanic. I can go and live forever on my telephone.
Yeah.
But there will come a time where I'll be, you can upload. I'll record a number of crucial phrases, and then when my children want to ask me a question, they can go on my phone, and even though I've been dead for 10 years, they can still ask me a question and I'll still reply. That is really weird. That is immortality, right? Yeah. But this guy sounds like he's not quite right in the head, and yet he is one of the most powerful men on the planet. So there you go.
Yeah. The thing that I take from this, apart from that it's completely barking, and if this was a left-wing figure spouting this stuff, we'd be declaring them completely insane, is the degree to which quite clever people who are amazing in one field actually spend a lot of their time fixating about something completely bonkers. Isaac Newton spent a lot of time doing alchemy.
Yeah, much more time
doing alchemy than he did devising the laws of gravity and doing all the stuff that he's now famous for. There are people who in their private lives have... they might be upset. In my case, my wife would say, "You spend far too much time buying books and doing NFL Fantasy League." Literally hours of my week are spent, analysing this. I finally won a league championship this year against my friends after 12 years of trying.
Well, congratulations. It finally paid off.
This is not a useful use of my time.
No, but
it just isn't.
But it is harmless.
Yeah. You're not giving 4-hour-long lecture series.
Exactly. You're not running the kind of one of the premier kind of tech companies.
Not yet.
You don't have power.
Just you wait.
Just wait. My avatar is going to take over the world.
He sounds like
death.
Megamind. Do you remember Megamind?
Oh yeah, the animated film. Yeah.
Yes, he's basically Megamind.
Yes.
I think this is an interesting facet of his personality. I've now asked him a lot of questions, mostly about his career in tech and AI, and he's answered and been thoughtful. But the most animated and passionate I've ever seen him was having an argument with him at dinner during these lectures about whether the Palantir in Lord of the Rings was a force for good or evil. Because his sort of big theory is that it does more good than harm, obviously, hence the name of his company after it. And that seems to be where he's excited, on those questions, on theology. He seemed almost bored of AI when he was talking about it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It must be terrible making all that money.
Yeah, awful.
and being rich and important enough and powerful enough that a rising young star of British journalism has just spent an hour talking to you about the antichrist.
Why can't he just be a depraved sex predator like all the other,
Well, on the subject, this is the perfect point for a delicate segue, because we have several pieces in the magazine this week about all the revelations we've had in the Epstein files. Yeah. Well, I say all the revelations. I mean, there's so many millions of emails to go through that stuff is still 3 million. That stuff is still being discovered. But we have 3 pieces in the magazine this week about the Epstein files from Melanie McDonough, Charles Moore, and Toby Young. I think probably, should we start by talking about, more in general then, actually, Tim, I'd love to just know what your thoughts are on Mandelson and the scandal, which I should say at the time of recording on a Wednesday afternoon is still unfolding. We've just had Keir Starmer announcing at PMQs that he regrets appointing Mandelson and that he's going to be removed from the Privy Council.
And I am as angry as the public and any member of this House. Mandelson betrayed our country, our Parliament and my party.
In terms of political scandal and fallout, I would just love to get your initial reaction to that.
On the face of it, it's absolutely massive. Everybody's saying it's probably the worst political scandal since the Profumo affair. I think it's very revealing about politics and a little bit, all these emails are very revealing about the sort of exchange between the rich and powerful and how utterly nauseating a lot of it is. The interesting thing is the sort of tone of some of these emails. But Mandelson clearly did wildly inappropriate things without, I suspect, even really thinking there was anything terribly wrong about phoning up his mate and telling him that the Prime Minister was about to resign or what the government was going to do in the financial crash.
Surely he must have known.
Well, he's...
Insider trading.
I mean, it would seem to be blunt and obvious insider trading, and there's going to be a criminal trial, a criminal case. We'll see whether it goes to trial or not. But there's also a lot of cant around about this. Keir Starmer, referring in PMQs to Mandelson. We will not give him his name or any of these titles. Now removed. Mandelson, he lied to me, he betrayed the country, he betrayed the Labour Party. Yeah. I mean, dear old Keir Starmer knew that Mandelson had remained friends with Jeffrey Epstein and stayed in his house while he was in jail at the moment he appointed him. And he's now hiding in classic Starmer fashion behind a whole bucket load of process, saying Peter lied to us and all the rest of it. And there's now, there's a whole roster of politicians and journalists saying, we always knew Peter was wrong and it's terrible that anybody had anything to do with him. Well, as a political journalist, I would say that's a cant of the highest order. Everybody knew what Peter Mandelson was like, but they also knew that he was one of the most intelligent minds about British politics of the last 30 years and a damn good lunch who always had something to tell you.
And was good at dealing with the Trump administration when he was ambassador.
If I took a moral position about who I was inviting to lunch or who I was talking to, I'd hardly be speaking to anybody, to be perfectly honest. Peter has clearly outstripped most people if I was to draw up a top 20 list of lunches I've ever had with the politically depraved, Peter would be very near the top of it now. But while we're all shocked, I'm not sure anybody's terribly surprised by this. And there's really quite a great deal of disingenuous nonsense around at the moment. There's a lot of wrong uns in politics. Not all of them are as good company as Peter Mandelson, unfortunately.
Are you saying you're going to miss him?
Oh, well, who knows whether I'll miss him or not?
Well, he
may be in touch again.
He still seems to think that he will be very involved in British political life. He did that a remarkable interview with Katie Balls in The Times. Katie Balls, formerly of this parish, of course, in which he has a bit where he sort of says that he still wants to be involved in the kind of direction of the country.
Well, that was one of those interviews that was done in quieter times about 10 days ago, which then had to be frantically updated at the last moment when it became clear that there was quite a lot more to talk about. But no, Peter Mandelson is not going to go away. Whether the establishment now finally goes, this finally is beyond the fourth resignation, twice from Cabinet, once from the ambassadorship, and then now from the Labour Party. This is now, we've now crossed the line. Some people will take that view, others may not. Let's see.
Yeah. Well, another person in the Epstein files, Sarah, that you've written about for the Mail is Sarah Ferguson, who I would argue, I think you're completely right to say that probably is the figure that has fallen the most in people's estimations as a result of the recent...
Yes, I quite liked Sarah Ferguson. I sort of bought the whole kind of bumbling Sloan, bit of a jolly, bit sort of useless sometimes, like all of us, well, me particularly, But it's just the latest stuff is just so distasteful. The idea that you would take your two girls, your daughters, who were at the time 19 and 20, you'd fly them out to America to go and have to meet somebody who'd just come out of jail 5 days before he'd come out of jail, Epstein, for trafficking sex with minors. It really weird. Any normal parent would make sure that their girls didn't go anywhere near someone like that. Yeah. And then this other weird sort of email where she talks about the fact that Janie's not around because she's on a shagging weekend. Again, why would you tell someone who you knew
It's pretty weird,
was a
isn't
sexual
it?
predator that your young daughter was off having a shag? I mean, it's just such a odd thing to do. It's so inappropriate. And I understand that, Fergie had a tough time when she was in the royal family. I get all of that. And I know that her mother left her when she was young. But I just think this is all just really, really, really grubby. And her constant begging for money from this guy. And her sort of, she says that she was terrified of him, and then, 2 weeks later she's sending him some kind of fawning email. I mean,
Ask him to marry her.
Yes, exactly. Marry me. I love you.
I love you. You've given me all this money. It's marvellous.
So bizarre. The whole thing is just so bizarre, and it's all to do with money.
Well, same with Peter Mandelson. I mean, that's something which struck out to me is obviously the.
But I understand it in Peter Mandelson's case. To defend him for a moment, I was married to a politician. Politics is a lot of, unless you make it a lot of money before you go in. I was married to a politician who's also now the editor of Spectator, but. Which is, by the way, not why I've been invited on this podcast. When I spoke to him earlier and he said, "What are you doing later?" And I said, "Oh, I'm doing your podcast." How are you? Anyway, but the point is that money is a problem in politics for politicians, because unless you actually make a ton of money before you go into politics, it is it's a sort of, it just slips through your fingers.
And all your friends are loaded.
All your friends are loaded. This was the thing that Mandelson had, was he was surrounded by people fantastically, sort of stupendously rich and all this kind of stuff. And he didn't come from a rich background, did he?
No, I mean, he's sort of Labour royalty, because
Yeah.
his grandfather was Herbert Morrison, and he's always sort of... But yeah, he loved power and he loved money.
Yeah.
And I think probably money first.
But
George Osborne was similarly afflicted, but has managed to conduct himself with rather more decorum.
He's caught up on the money front.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, but also he didn't come.
But he was going to inherit millions anyway.
He didn't exactly come. So, but but the reason I mention all that is because with Fergie that wasn't true. She was given a nice payoff when she left. She was the royals were not mean to her.
No, Prince Philip was rather fond of her.
Exactly. So she doesn't really have that excuse, and if she'd behaved slightly differently, and if she'd played her cards slightly better, she wouldn't really have had. But it was for some reason she just wanted to lead this sort of insane lifestyle. But also Andrew as well. I mean, it's not like the royal family is short of a bob or two. He doesn't really need to go touting his wares around Kazakhstan and all these weird places with all these strange people and dodgy dictators, and yet he did.
Yeah.
So the only logical conclusion is that A, he liked them, B, he enjoyed it. He wanted to do it. It was what he wanted to do. In which case, I'm sorry, but no.
Yeah. There's so many, because again there's so many of these emails. There's so many kind of little details that are coming out that, I mean, obviously the whole thing is so grim and horrible. But there are these moments of total triviality that are almost kind of hilarious because they're so trivial in amongst all the kind of horrible scandal. So Toby writes a very good column. Toby Young writes a very good column for the magazine this week in which he talks about his mention in the Epstein files, which is him sort of begging Ghislaine Maxwell to read his Evening Standard column about being on the Celebrity Weakest Link.
Oh, yes.
And he says, if I'm going to be cancelled for this, I should be cancelled, but for being a shameless self-promoter.
Yes, because he was in New York around the same time that she went to New York, and he did that play, How to Lose Friends and whatever it was called. Alienate People, yeah.
And there's all these sorts of trivial details. I mean, from Epstein's Xbox Live account getting blocked to some missing laundry, and then there's a piece which Melanie McDonough writes to the magazine this week, which I think is very interesting, about this idea that 15 to 20 years ago, when these emails were all being sent, around 2009, 2010, people did treat email as if it was totally ephemeral. Yeah. That you send it, it goes into the ether, and then it vanishes forever. Yeah. And the idea that it might be kind of brought back up in 2025 just wouldn't have crossed people's mind. I mean, what do you think? I think that's...
Epstein's operating right at the advent of email. It's a real throwback to how people used to email. I mean, someone was joking. There's
all sent from BlackBerry. Yeah, all sent from BlackBerry.
There's no, I hope this email finds you well, please see attached. They're using it like text as this constant, instant communication message. And you have these extremely stupid, in many cases very immoral people, who clearly felt that if they sent something on their BlackBerry to his BlackBerry, that was it. That was the end of things. People are always things like wire transfers and money exchanges and begging for column reads or inviting him to book launches without any awareness that this stuff is permanent. And I suspect after this has all come out, no one will ever use email in quite the same way. I mean, you've got all the panic about Telegram now, as obviously Melanie points out. If you want something to be destroyed, write it on paper.
Well, exactly. So
Spies now use paper.
We always used to assume, I suppose, that physical media was the stuff that lasts because, it's lasted thousands of years from Mesopotamian tablets or whatever, and that digital stuff was ephemeral. But actually, arguably, the reverse is true, because you can always destroy the physical stuff.
Yeah,
and then
there's
the
all this
digital
fuss
stuff.
that historians had about keeping government documents and all the rest of it, and how it's all going out of fashion. But actually, we've had far more insight from the Epstein files, from all the WhatsApp messages during the COVID years. You know, they were far more revelatory than anybody would have ever written anything down. I mean, I haven't written an interesting email since I was informed that the Chinese state had hacked me at the Sunday Times, along with 20 other journalists. I mean, I'd have been pretty offended if they hadn't hacked me. And my general view on these things is, if the Chinese state wants to know what I know, they can read the Spectator. But
Should we talk very briefly about Melania Trump, because she has this new documentary that is just coming out, which is reviewed by Deborah Ross in the arts page of the magazine, and also mentioned in Piers Morgan's diary, in which he talks a bit about his thoughts about Melania. Well, Sarah, I mean, I should start with you, I think, because you've met Melania,
I met her once. I met her at the Trump state dinner.
Oh, what did you make of her?
When he was first president. Yeah. I mean, she seemed very intelligent, very. We were in this room with Donald Trump was in the middle of the room with like a big orange sun, and Jared was there, and all his sort of acolytes, and then the Queen, the late Queen, was there, and it was quite a strange room to be in, and she was standing to one side talking to the wife of the American ambassador at the time. And Michael had been sucked off into that sort of giant orbit. And so I sort of shuffled over and said hello. And she was very inscrutable, I'd say. She's like a sort of cat. She really does have that kind of incredible face. And I said, because she was with the wife of the ambassador, I thought I'd make a comment about the gardens, because the American embassy in London has these really beautiful gardens. I mean, they are quite spectacular. And I said, well, how are you enjoying your stay at the ambassador's residence? Are you enjoying the gardens? And she said, yes, the gardens were very beautiful, but then Donald, he come in a helicopter, and now they're not so beautiful. And I thought, well, that's quite a good.
That's quite funny, yeah.
That's
witty,
quite funny and witty, and so that was my sort of experience of her. I thought she seemed like a very sort of self-contained, sort of switched-on person. I don't think she's an idiot at all. I mean, I haven't
sense
seen
she has the
documentary.
measure of him. I mean, there's this wonderful moment in the trailer where she phones him up in a sort of mock, kind of grandiose, sycophantic way and says, "Hello, Mr. President." And he says, "Did you see it?" Whatever it was.
Was
I
that
don't know.
brilliant?
And she says, "No, I will watch it on the news." It's just this kind of ability to bring him down a notch that very few people actually have.
Well, Piers says that he believes that she's the only person who can kind of talk him back from something properly crazy. I mean, do you think that's probably true?
I mean, possibly true. I mean, the thing with Trump is there could be all manner of compromise. He just wouldn't care. He'd say it was just all fake. Or he'd ride it out and say, yeah, well,
yeah. Well,
who wouldn't in my position?
Exactly.
I mean, you've got to be quite a tough cookie to deal with Trump, I think, in your everyday life, haven't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much time she spends with him.
Well, she certainly didn't spend a lot of time with him in the first term. It was about 2 years before she moved to the White House, I think, wasn't it? She spent a lot of time in New York and with her son, but you sense she's around a bit more now.
But I think that's what's quite interesting. I mean, in the first term, Trump was making a big thing of his whole family, and he was using Ivanka in place of her a lot of the time. And now he seems to be really zoning in on, oh no, we're going to have a sort of cult of Melania. And I think they're possibly hoping that this film is going to help them capture that sort of like young MAGA-adjacent female vote that has sort of eluded them so far, which is an interesting shift. I mean,
that's right. There's no way this would have been made in the first time.
No, I think it's such an odd vehicle, though. I mean, because it feels, from what I've heard of it, it feels very sort of staged and. It's just a pointless thing to do, really, isn't it? I don't quite know what it achieved. I
think Trump's such a creature of showmanship and television, and so I mean, just having it up on screen, I suppose, is as good a reason.
Maybe she's not even real to him unless he's watching.
But I also, I think Trump reveres things like Hollywood. Institutions like that in a way that is really sort of old-fashioned and strange to us. Just her having a film with posters in LA for him is a big deal.
No, that's true. And he's a child.
In wicked Democrat Los Angeles.
He has that childlike enthusiasm for sort of new fun things. It's a new toy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm now married to a film star.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Exactly. Maybe she should do a sort of Meghan-style kind of cookery show or something like that. That could be fun. Yeah.
At home
Or
with
she could,
Melania.
she could strip down a Kalashnikov in 20 seconds, which I'm sure she can do.
Well, finally, shall we talk about Philip Hensch's piece in the magazine this week? So he's written about the rise of the patronizing medic. He says the doctors, increasingly now, they're talking down to patients. They're using what is actually, it actually has a name, it's elder speak. So particularly to older patients,
Yes.
this is, but using kind of babyish words like
Yes,
tummy or,
yes.
or
Poo.
poo or
The sort of check your poo thing.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Check your, I don't know, stools.
Well,
That's
exactly.
what they're called, isn't
exactly.
it?
I mean, so what the point that Philip's making is that what you actually want is a doctor who's frank and honest and has a sort of a cold professional detachment.
Yes, I want my doctor to be incomprehensively clever. Do you know what I mean? I just want to not understand what he's saying. I want a nurse to have to come along and translate.
Yes, exactly.
But without being callous. I mean, the number of times I speak to my parents about some medical appointment they've had, and it's very unclear what the doctor has actually said because it's just couched. Philip talks about this. His father, who'd written books about Sophocles, was asked to refer to his penis as his wee-wee.
Yeah.
I hate it when they say pop up on the couch.
Yeah.
I don't want to pop. I'm not popping. I'm going to sit on it, but
exactly.
I'm not popping.
Exactly. And
If I could pop, I wouldn't be seeking medical assistance. I'm here because my knee's gone, my ankle's gone, my back is screwed.
Exactly.
I'm not going to...
But do you think that's just because they're young? Or do you think it's because they're told to do it?
I think they're told to. I think they're told to make it. They want to be as. I think, anyway, my theory would be that they are just. They're told to be reassuring and comforting, and the way of being reassuring and comforting in their brains is to speak to you like you're an infant.
But I know people who've been given a terminal diagnosis and don't even realise they've been given it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the danger. There's actually a danger.
If I've got 4 months to live, I'd quite like to know about it, please,
exactly.
rather than be told, you've got a bit of spot and bother there that might be a bit tricky.
Philip quotes someone who's told that he has naughty cells, meaning cancer.
But I
Your
think
naughty
We're going
cells.
to tell them off with chemotherapy.
They've done a bit of a boo-boo.
I think one of the problems here is that doctors are now taught loads of bedside manner stuff, and they're told that people are stupid. And obviously people who maybe not have English as a first language isn't helping. But they're also bound to this constant complaints process. So if you're complained about by a patient, you're sort of in trials and stuff for months and months. So they're terrified of that. And I think they're scared that if they tell you have cancer, you might complain about them, saying, I was very upset with my doctor. Yeah,
Yes.
PTSD
I was
from this.
triggered.
So I suspect that's part of the baby speak. If they believe people who are very fragile because of the complaints process, they're treating you like a sort of easy triggered child.
Yeah.
But it is also an age thing too, as Philip points out. I think there's it's part
so
of a more general social problem with just patronising the shit out of old people.
I once went for an inspection by a doctor and was asked to move my willy out of the way so he could cup my testicles. And as he was cupping my testicles, he said, "Oh, you used to work at the Daily Mail. My uncle is Ian Woolridge, the sports writer." And we sat there for 5 minutes while he tried to work out whether I had a lump or a cyst or something like that, while discussing Woolridge's oeuvre and output and how much I'd enjoyed reading what he had to say, which is one of the more surreal experiences of my life.
Yes. I was going to ask if anyone has had their own first-hand experience with this kind of talking down baby speak, but I don't think any anecdote could top that. So.
No, that's a brilliant
that wins.
anecdote.
Tim, Sarah and Lara, thank you very much indeed for joining me.